I am gaming. I am gaming. I am gaming podcast.
Hi everybody, my name is Ivica. This is another episode of I'm Gaming Podcast, 24th episode. We're talking about entrepreneurship, the gaming industry, and a little bit nostalgia. And this time around, I have a new guest who is the most famous person I ever met in my life. So we're having today Alex Kack, and you probably know him as the green shirt guy. So Alex, thank you so much for getting on to the podcast.
Hey, pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
And I wasn't kidding. This is an homage to you.
I see you. Now you're sitting back. You're wearing a green polo shirt.
Yep. It's something in your honor. But I'm not kidding. You are the most famous person I ever met. Hands down. So let's take our audience, those who don't know you, back almost a year now. It's the summer of 2019, right? I'm guessing your day started normally, and then at the end of the day, everything changed.
Yeah, it was, it wasn't even the end of the day, really. It's so weird. I was working on this political campaign at the time, and we had to go to the city council meeting. It's part of a process, to get something on the ballot for people to vote for it. It's this whole pomp and circumstance. The city council has to place it on the ballot, which is really just like, it's a ceremony basically.
Okay.
And so I'm there, and the meetings are often fairly dry, so you're not expecting anything too crazy. So I walk in and you see those two sitting there. The only seat left is basically in front of them. So here's the thing. If you work in politics or activism of any kind in Arizona, you know those two. They're part of this like crazy hate group that like they're super anti-immigrant, they're anti-foreigner, and they go and they harass people and they like film themselves doing it. And some of this stuff is like really nuts in the past. Like, man, they went to like, there was a Catholic monastery that it was being used to like help like orphan refugee children. And they like went there and like harassed the kids in the monastery and shit.
Great people. Great people.
Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead. No worries.
Oh, thank God, because I just did. But yeah, I mean, like they're, stellar people, the best of America for sure. And yeah, so they're there and they start up with that crap. And yeah, it was a real debacle. Like they were there in theory to protest the campaign I was working on, but they didn't seem to like understand what it was. And it's like they didn't understand it was like a thing that the voters were going to vote on in like 2 months. They like thought it was like something this mayor and city council were doing, and they were like screaming at him, and like, it was, and they were saying things that was just like completely wrong, like just no basis in reality. And then and it was just, it was a shit show, and it was just, it's one of those things. It's so. Having a viewpoint that is that exclusionary and that hateful is just utterly ridiculous, and presenting it in that way is more ridiculous. So yeah, I wound up laughing at them, and it so happened that there was the reporter who was covering the event for one of the local news stations, grabbed the camera, flipped it around, and zoomed in on my face while it was going on. He put the footage up on Twitter that night, and it was just like took off. Yeah, and I shouldn't even say it was that quick. The reality is that's not how my perception of it was at the time. I went and got dinner with my coworkers. We had some drinks. We were talking about how fucking crazy that whole thing was, and then I went home and went to bed. It wasn't, I saw the video. A friend of mine sent it to me when it was on the local news guy, and she was like, "Hey, is this you?" there may be 30 comments on it at that point.
Okay.
And I responded to a couple of them, and I went to bed. Next morning, it was like a bomb went off. I've never seen so many notifications. My phone like just didn't stop buzzing and vibrating, and you know, I had people from like CNN calling me. It was like, you know, the first couple, it was like the local news stations wanted to talk to me. Like that made sense, you know. It was like, okay, I get that. And then all of a sudden, it's freaking CNN, and then like MTV and like Yahoo, and you know, like European news groups, and like just Canadian talk shows, and just it was just the craziest thing.
Yeah, it's super weird because I can clearly remember the moment when that got viral. I remember watching you. I remember my friends watching you, and none of us actually. I kind of follow the U.S. politics, but not on a huge basis. I know what's going on. Many of my friends are not following it at all, and you still are now somebody who's like recognized as a person because of that.
Yeah.
So it's completely insane to think about it. Not only to think about, but in your case, to go through it.
Well, it was like nuts because it was like it has such a far reach, and people started using it for different like political things that they were a part of, which was really amazing and inspiring and cool. I mean, there's like the protesters in like Hong Kong were like carrying signs around with my face on them and like making memes out of me, and like people on both sides of the situation in Venezuela were like using my face, which is like, I mean, it's absolutely nuts, you know? Yeah, and I'm sure all those people, like, they're not paying attention to what's going on in Arizona, you know? Like,
yeah,
I'm sure you know, but somehow it reached and it struck a chord with them. And I think part of it is, I mean, like, we have, you know, no matter where you are in the world, you tend to have shitty people. Like, there are assholes everywhere. There's racists and bigots and people who hate you because of your religion or because you're gay or you know, whatever their terrible viewpoint is, everybody has seen somebody like that person. And so I think that the reason it got worldwide and not just in America was that you know, it's something that everyone could connect to, because the reality is I mean, nowhere's perfect, and you know, true. You'll find terrible viewpoints and horrible ideology wherever you go.
That's super true. Yeah, in my experience, for any region, but especially from my direct experience of living here, the thing that also struck a big chord with me is that they're clearly aggressive. They're acting out really aggressively. So you don't even know what they're all about, but you can see a huge level of aggression, and you respond to it with humor. And I think that this is something that a lot of people really got connected to immediately, because especially now where politics in so many places around the world is about conflict and kind of a, you know, like a celebrity deathmatch almost. You want to see that engagement. You want to see somebody destroy anybody on a YouTube video or anything like that. You have something like this, which is a clear response to their aggression. So you're not passive, you're responding, but without any aggression. And you basically win, that's it. Whatever was their point of view, whatever their argument was, it's lost. Because they lost even that, I think, internal legitimacy they have of they thinking of themselves as super serious, and you deny them that. You say, basically, without saying anything, you're fools. And I think anyone everywhere in the world can relate to that in their own perspective, no matter is it Hong Kong or Venezuela, different sides in this case. So that I think that's kind of that human element that we all got hooked on immediately without even knowing context.
Well, I think it's this thing too, where it's like, you know, it wasn't intentional. It just kind of happened, but there is something to be said for it, I think, as like a tactic for shutting down people like that, because nobody wants to be made fun of. Nobody wants to be mocked. And I think no one wants to feel like, you know, like they're not taken seriously. Like their exactly. Viewpoints are are a joke. Like they are a joke. And I think that's part of it too, is when it's your views, when it's, you know, a core idea that you hold, that really cuts to the quick of who you are. And if someone's laughing at it, much less a lot of people are laughing at it, suddenly you start to reevaluate what you're about, you know, what the merit of your position. It starts to edge away at your own ability to take yourself and your ideas seriously. That doesn't happen when you meet that aggression with aggression. That doesn't have the same reaction. You're not making anyone question anything by screaming at them.
Yeah, it just reinforces itself.
Yeah. It's just, the problem is that when someone's screaming, it's natural to scream back. And I mean, you see that in that video, they're standing up and yelling. There are other people that are yelling at them. There is one guy who is yelling funny things back at them though, which is actually a friend of mine, named Brian, who was in the back of the room. And you know, that, I think that's, again, it's part of that same idea. If you do feel the need to be aggressive, you know, doing it in a way that still is pointing out how ridiculous they are is the way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and he's confrontational, but he's still, I mean, there's the line in that video that made everyone fucking laugh, where they're like, you know, they're yelling at the mayor and they're like, you're in direct violation of your oath to the Constitution. And my buddy Brian from the back, he yelled, you know, you're in direct violation of being a jackass.
Yeah, I remember even that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny, you know? And
True.
You know, that is, I think, so much different than getting in someone's face and just screaming at them and insulting them. There's a lot of power in, look, trust me, honestly, as a kid, I remember being made fun of sucks. There's a lot of power in it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really important that the things they're saying, the idea of, on some level, providing the ability or at least an opportunity for people to evaluate their points, because it's not about defeating somebody. It's actually helping everyone through something that's, most of us agree, are basically common goods and common goals: freedom, liberty, and so forth. And those who aim to deny it for whatever reason are likely on the wrong side of the history. I mean, chances are they are. Chances of them not being are infinitely smaller than the other option. And in this case, you actually provide that opportunity for people to say, wait, maybe everyone is laughing at me because some of my views are actually pretty funny. And that can be a starting point. But you're saying, I think also a big thing you're mentioning here, you didn't plan it. It happened spontaneously. And we all latched on it. You got famous. What happens when you get famous? How did the period after that look like? You talked about interviews, the press attention, national, international attention. Does a moment come about when you say, hey, I'm getting so much potential here. How can I use this potential? Not only, in this case, you have kind of a political agenda and you're inside of a process that's political in nature, but the attention also focuses on you as a person, right? Because anyone who sees you likely thinks, even if they agree or not agree, hey, this guy looks interesting. You're kind of the definition of being interesting in 30 seconds without knowing anything about it. So when does that moment come about when you start thinking, hey, can I use this opportunity? You're saying, you mentioned Twitter. I'm betting a lot of people started following you immediately, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think it's like the second day, you know, because the first day you're having a hard time like believing it's real, and you keep expecting it to just like die out. So I think, you know, end of the first day, the second day, something like that, like you start trying to be like, we have to do something with this. And so for me, it was, you know, I was working on the campaign that they were there protesting. And also the campaign we were working on was a measure to help, you know, protect people in the community. You know, but basically it would, I'm trying to think of a soundbite way to put this. It's been so long since I worked on that campaign that I don't have it off the top of my head. But basically, it was a sanctuary city measure. Is what kind of jargon for it. And the goal was to basically take the local police out of the immigration process, leave that to the immigration authorities, and make sure that if you're here already and you're going about your day, let's say you get pulled over for some minor infraction, the cops are going to deal with the local laws,
Okay.
and not and leave the immigration work up to immigration. That was basically the nature of this law. There's a lot of people who get caught in this system. They basically get victimized, so it's, for me at that time, it was all about, how do we protect the work we're doing and use this kind of media circus to amplify it to help people the most we can. Part of the issue too is that there were a lot of very conservative, kind of big money groups in the area who did not want us to do what we were doing. Okay. So I did everything I thought possible with that attention to just try to use it to fundraise for the campaign.
Okay.
Which was fairly successful, all things considered. It was still a drop in the bucket compared to like what our opponents had, but that was the first thought. The second thought comes after you lose that campaign.
Okay.
And once you've lost and you suddenly realize that you still have something like 70,000 Twitter followers.
Okay.
What the fuck do you do next? So that's been the thing for the last couple of months, is I've been kind of floating out there. And it's an interesting thing because it's, I've always had these different creative projects I've been a part of and attached to. I have a number of blogs that have kind of just sat inactive for the last year. So I've been redoing those in the last couple of weeks, or at least working on like articles that might be worth posting.
Okay.
And then I started a podcast, which is something I've wanted to do for a really long time. And I've tried to like be a part of some others in the past. They never really stuck. So I started just doing this one myself. And I'm kind of more focused now on just like having fun with it. At the same time though, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that like where this came from and how it was started and why it was started and the kind of dynamics that were involved. And, if there's any chance for me to use the platform I have to help people, that's always got to be the first goal. So that's the real issue. But it is this multi-step process as it keeps going on to kind of, it was very long-winded, but to answer your original question, you start thinking about it right away, but the thought changes so many times.
I think I completely get, and you answered it completely or fully, the idea of having something, seeing something grow, seeing that first impulse, which is, okay, let's funnel this attention into the campaign, into fundraising. And that passes, and the attention is still there. You didn't stop being viral back then. You're still there. But then comes the idea, what to do next. And I think it's really interesting, the idea of you thinking of coming back to your old projects. Instead of doing what would be my first thought, is like, let's exploit this on the most basic, most primitive way possible, Like, let's embrace, because as a green shirt guy, you're basically something that gave a lot of fun to people, or interesting moments, or like engagement for a really short period. But there is nothing behind it. But you as Alex have so much behind it. So the idea of you being that viral sensation is just the entry point to Alex, Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, and I mean, that is what it's become, because I have people online, a lot of them who, I mean, they're, they came because they were interested in, green shirt guy as the meme, and that video in that moment. And I mean, they've stuck around. They're incredibly loyal. I've become friends with some of these people. Like I've become, like close friends with some of these people, and some of them are kind of more just like fans, for lack of a better term. But they read the things I write. They watch the videos I put out. I mean, they interact and engage with the stuff I post. And I mean, people buy clothes with my face on it, you know? And I mean, and it's moved away from not just the green shirt guy stuff anymore. There's some old photos of me posing ridiculously, and you can go on Redbubble now and buy those.
Like, stickers and stuff, right?
Yeah, stickers, posters, like iPhone cases, and like mini skirts, like yoga pants, and like people have like purchased them and like sent photos of like, here's me wearing a dress that's got a bunch of 3-inch photos of you all over it. I mean, that's fucking crazy.
You have a community, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's weird because like some of them have connected with each other, which is one of the coolest parts. Like there was some thread that was part of it is there's some thread that was like about dating me or something like that, and it was like some lady was in there from England, and I made some. She like basically like was talking about dating me, and I made some joke about how like I'd already done a long distance thing in England and I didn't want to do it again, which is true actually. But some other guy popped up in the thread, and he was like, I don't know, from Germany or somewhere else, and he was like, oh, you got these Americans don't know what they're missing out on, blah blah blah. And I was like, well, you guys need to date, you know. And like they've interacted, they talk to each other, like in my comments they flirt, you know. I don't know if it's gone any further than that, but
yeah, that's cool. I mean,
yeah, it's like, you know, it's just this weird, it's this weird community of people that follow me.
In a way, it goes back to that idea: internet is weird, online is strange, but in your case, it's good strange. It's good weird, and I think that's really important. And I think that the way you approach that fame, that your 5 minutes of online fame, is really a useful thing for anybody who goes through the same experience. Which is, don't focus immediately on like doing whatever you can for the shortest amount of time. Just think about the things you actually want to do and see how this helps you. Because as you say, you reverted back to some old projects and later on began new projects, which is, sorry for rambling, your podcast. But it's also something that came about from your previous experiences, and there's a lesson there. I mean, we all think about things that happen to you like something that's impossible, but in some way, in some shape and form, we all get attention, sometimes more often, more or less often, but we can get that huge amount of attention. And then the question, what do I do with it, is something that you came across as well. And now you found a series of answers, not one answer. You didn't start a company, green shirt guy, and started making green shirts, right?
Yeah.
You reverted back to the things you wanted to do always.
Yeah. It's, I mean, that is the thing, you know, is you have to do stuff that you actually want to do. Because otherwise you'll never get it done, you know?
True.
And you have to try to give back with whatever you can. I think is part of it too. Those are probably the two big takeaways that I have. And yeah, I don't know. It would have been just disingenuous, for example, if I clearly liked the shirt I was wearing that day. Why would I make a shirt to compete with it, you know? Like, or something like that. It's, yeah, I don't know. It's just like I feel like there are people that like, it's just this flash in the pan sometimes. And there's not, I think they're missing out on how fun it can be by looking for the instant gratification of it and not carrying it forward.
Because they feel that it was going to be gone in a second, in a moment, in a minute, in a day, in a week. And so let's use it, let's drill it to the core. And usually that doesn't pan out into anything good. But in your case, you have ongoing projects And now you're less and less green shirt guy and more Alex. And I think that's something that's happening at least as long as I followed you, which is a couple of months. And
Yeah.
I think that's a transformation that will continue.
Yeah, it has been odd noticing how that's changed. And I think like one of the examples, I'm on Cameo, which is like the service where you can like, you know, pay celebrities to make like video greetings. It's like your mom's birthday and she's a fan of whoever. She goes and you buy a video of them singing happy birthday and you send it to your mom. And so you can buy videos of me doing greetings on there. And mine are like $10 is the amount that I have mine set at. There's other people on there. Some of them are ridiculous. It'd be like $500 for a 1-minute video. It's nuts. But the thing that I like noticed in that transformation is like when I first was on the service, it was, you know, like me in the shirt. I record the video. I wouldn't even say my name at first. And then as time went on, there were a couple of times where I wound up getting requests and I just like didn't have access to the shirt. I was like traveling or whatever. So I just filmed it what I was wearing. And people were kind of lukewarm about it.
Okay.
Now, as it's gone on though, like I filmed one of those videos and like I'll be doing it in a t-shirt like this. I might mention that I like the video, I might not, and people are perfectly happy one way or the other is the thing. So that like is this weird little way of like measuring how that has changed, where it's people, you know, 4 months ago were buying a video from the green shirt guy. Now they're buying videos from Alex Kack, and the things that I'm being asked to talk about don't reference the video anymore at all.
So that's awesome, because I hope that transformation and the process of you becoming completely Alex continues, and that the moment of you being the green shirt guy is just, when you look back at it, only one step in your kind of evolving into things you want to do. So Alex, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really, really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciated the opportunity.
For everyone watching this, don't forget to check out Alex in his podcast, Sorry for Rambling. Link will be in the description below. You can check it out live on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube. So whatever you're using, you can find Sorry for Rambling. Really cool guests, interesting talks. You should give it a look. Also, thank you so much for checking out this podcast. If you didn't subscribe now. Also, a big thanks to Gaming with Galatia YouTube channel. If you're into Minecraft, you need to check it out. This is my latest patron. A big thanks to the channel for supporting me. And of course, you check out my Patreon page. This is also in the links below. And if you have $1 to spare, I would love to have that $1. Again, Alex, thanks a lot for being here. Have a great day and continue with all your projects. I think you're a really cool guy and you have a lot to give to people for sure.
You too, man. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And, you know, I'm looking forward to hearing more of it in the future.
Bye-bye, man.